Many Christians today are very anxious about protecting the church's witness. But what exactly does that mean? For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. This is Breakpoint. Ever since the contentious 2016 election, many have publicly questioned whether or not evangelical support for Donald Trump hurt the church's witness. Others assert that to have voted for anyone but Donald Trump warrants excommunication. Over the last 2 years of the pandemic and all of its associated controversies, some confidently proclaimed that if Christians chose not to wear a mask or to be fully vaccinated, they've harmed the cause of Christ, while others announced that to wear a mask or to be vaccinated was to compromise the cause of Christ. Now, whenever cultural flashpoints are used to judge the faith of others, it's the same script that tends to be followed. An appeal is made to the church's witness and reputation in the wider world. Of course, the Bible's clear that Christians do indeed bear responsibility for how our faith is perceived and received by those both inside and outside of the church. After Jesus washed his disciples' feet, he told them that by loving each other in that way, all people would know that you are my disciples. When he prayed in the garden on the night before the crucifixion, Jesus asked God to unify his followers so that, quote, the world may believe that you have sent me. When people see our good works, Jesus said elsewhere, they would glorify your Father, which is in heaven. In other words, Jesus clearly tied together the love among fellow Christians with the plausibility of the gospel message to the wider world. What's clear from both these verses and the entire Bible is that we bear responsibility for our reputation, both inside and outside the church. And that stewarding the gospel message means protecting both the integrity of the message and demonstrating its impact on our lives and the world around us. The gospel is plausible and it's compelling, and we ought never do anything to make it seem less so. However, what the church is not and cannot be responsible for is the reaction a world will have, particularly a world that is unbelieving and even hostile to either Christian morality or Christian truth claims. Loving our neighbor, for example, means very different things to someone depending on their definition of love. According to our constantly shifting culturally dependent definition, an act of love can actually seem like intolerance, even hate. In the same way, we're not responsible if someone perceives the good news of the gospel message as bad news. We're not necessarily at fault when it is rejected or hated or when it offends, as Jesus predicted it would offend. And the good news of that is when the gospel is believed and embraced and heeded, then the success clearly belongs to God, not our clever methodology or presentation. At the end of the day, according to Scripture, what hurts our witness the most is disunity. And it doesn't mean that unity comes at the expense of church. What we're told, of course, in this cultural moment is that what hurts our witness the most is violating any of the new moral consensus about sex, politics, or controversial public figures. So, in an effort to protect our witness, we've spent an inordinate amount of time policing each other's behavior, often publicly, about matters prioritized within a wrong set of values. Now, I've no doubt that much of the concern over the church's witness is genuine and it's well-intentioned. We are responsible to live as if what we say we believe is real. At the same time, Jesus never rebuked the Pharisees for being too mean, but he rebuked them for being hypocrites. Whenever our even well-intentioned concern for the church's witness becomes a dressed-up purity test, what we're really saying is, you can't be a Christian and do that thing, which misunderstands the Christian faith altogether. Now, certainly, true belief always leads to regeneration. Sanctification takes time, and salvation is not forfeited every time a mistake is made or a theological error is committed. The patience and grace we extend to each other, even when a fellow believer makes a decision we strongly disagree with, well, that's a way of loving one another and advancing the witness of Christ to a watching world. In fact, just imagine how compelling the church's witness would be today if we prioritized forgiveness. Our wider culture has absolutely no time for that. And many of those showing the most concern for the church's witness has little time for it either. To forgive is considered complicity in evil. To accept an apology as sincere, to extend grace, even the benefit of the doubt to somebody else, is completely unacceptable. Christians should be different. We shouldn't just take different sides of an issue. We should take our sides differently. We might find out in the end that forgiving easily, assuming the best of one another, might even compel a watching world to ask us about the reason for that kind of hope. What we might find is that it's actually forgiveness, not a purity test. That's the best thing for the church's witness these days. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet with Breakpoint.